Hello and welcome back to part 2 of my winter quilt. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, that's where we planned the quilt, chose the fabrics, sketched the layout, cut every piece and started assembling the first blocks. Today we get to continue the fun part, sewing, quilting, binding and finally the reveal. I'm so excited to show you how everything comes together. My goal has been to slow down, learn from past mistakes and actually enjoy the process instead of rushing through it. Taking the time to share each step here with you has made me understand and appreciate the craft so much more, and I hope it does the same for you. So, let's dive in. Last time I finished all the block combinations I needed. I always like to make the first set slowly and use them as reference so I don't have to keep checking the design while sewing. At this stage, I was constantly moving between the sewing machine, iron board and cutting table, so I decided to work in phases. First, I will batch sew all the half square triangles, then press them, trim the excess seam allowance, and keep going step by step until all I have are little neat squares. This will make the whole process smoother and help me get into a good rhythm. Just like in the first video, I'm chain sewing the blocks, one after the other without cutting the thread, saving thread and making the process flow more smoothly. Batch sewing is faster, but it has a downside. Once my brain goes on autopilot, mistakes are easier to make. Like this one, good side to the wrong side. Seam repair to the rescue. Here's a closer look at the seams. When I press them open, everything lays flatter. And here's a mix, one seam open, one to the side. For this block, I think I'll press everything open. For each ribbon star block, I will need 4 squares like this, so I'm grouping them in sets of 4 for later. Now I'll continue making this in a batch and I will update you later. I've got great news. Remember how in the last video I was struggling with my basic rotary cutter? Well, Fanti contacted me to kindly sponsor this video and sent me their C8 nano electric scissors. I'm so happy, it was about time I had a proper cutting tool. This would have helped me so much when I was cutting all the quilt pieces, but luckily it arrived just in time to cut the batting and the quilt back, which we'll try later. It's cordless, very lightweight and surprisingly powerful. It cuts smoothly through fabric, cardboard, plastic, even leather without forcing it. With my old cutter, I always had to go over the same spot several times and I'd end up with wrist cramps, so not fun. I really appreciate that it has 3 speed settings, slower for delicate cuts, faster for thicker materials. The battery also charges really fast, about an hour, which is more than enough for a long cutting session. One detail I didn't expect to love so much is the LED screen and built-in light. I can see the battery and speed at a glance, and the light really helps on dark, rainy days. Changing blades is also very easy thanks to a one-step locking system, no tools, no strength needed. I will leave all the details and a discount linked below if you want to check it out. It took a while, but yesterday I finally finished every half square triangle. Now we can start sewing all the blocks into rows. I like to set up my sewing space so it feels almost like a little production line, but still cozy. I stack the squares by color so I can grab them easily, keep a box next to me to catch all the loose threads, and have the iron right at my side so I don't have to get up constantly. This table used to be my entire sewing setup until we built this little thrifted corner, and honestly it transformed my sewing experience so much. If you're curious, I have a whole video on how we built and organized this space. I wanted to say I'm sorry there were no videos for a couple of weeks over Christmas. I've realized, again, that I tend to put a lot of pressure on myself to upload every week. I somehow always forget how easily that pressure turns into burnout. I'm not sure where it comes from, maybe it's the platform with YouTube pushing consistency and showing fewer videos when I slow down. Or maybe it's internal, the fear of disappointing you, of seeming less committed. The last time I skipped a week, I actually lost a few subscribers immediately after, and it was a tough reminder that I can't control everything. But with this quilt, there was simply no way to squeeze the process into a weekly deadline. So this time I gave myself more time, pacing the process and focusing on quality and care, rather than just speed. I hope this approach will lead to better videos for me and a more enjoyable experience for you as well. All the blocks are finally done and I can start sewing them together. This is my favorite part, when I start to see the layout and finish the puzzle. It's just so satisfying. To finish the top of the quilt, I lay the squares on the bed and sew them by strips, and then the strips together.
There's a new day that will come again tomorrow. There's a new day to wash away the pain. There's a new day to take away your sorrow. And the old ways get washed out by the rain. Darling, you've got to keep holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this: if you try to get some sleep, if you give up the fight, if only just for a bit, there's a new day to leave behind your troubles. There's a new day and it will set you free. There's a new day to get you through your struggles.
¿Qué pasa, mamá?
I will always think of you and me. Darling, you've got to keep holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this:
It's all done, and I think I miscalculated the measurements again. I thought I had to do a 5x6 quilt to make it rectangular like the bed, but here I am at 5x5 and it's just the perfect measure. I will just keep this row of extra blocks to make a table runner or pillows. Here I will take a break because we are going to my partner's village this Christmas. It's my mother-in-law's birthday and we've recently become aunt and uncle for the second time, so it's time to take some time off and be present with them. When I come back home, I will start quilting and binding. Hello, I'm back home and it's time to quilt. This is how the top turned out. It's so big. I don't know how I'll manage to quilt this in my domestic sewing machine. The fabric I'm using for the back of the quilt is too elastic and it will bring me troubles for sure, but I'm just happy to be using so much old fabric and finally emptying a little bit the pile of donated fabrics I got a few months ago. One of my past mistakes was pinched quilting, probably because I didn't smooth the layers properly before sewing. Today I taped the backing fabric to the floor and carefully pinned all the layers together, leaving extra batting and backing around the edges. This took me the entire afternoon. I've never made a quilt this large before and I think the size is what made it so challenging. Maybe I don't quite have the space or the right tools to work comfortably on a queen-sized quilt like this. If you do, how do you usually handle quilts this big? I'd love to hear your tips. Good morning, it's quilting day and I'm going to carefully roll the sides each time to make sure the bulkiness of the fabric doesn't try to push the needles into crooked lines. Also, instead of working at my sewing table, I'm going to move to the dining table, so I don't have the wall blocking the space while sewing. Wish me luck! Another mistake I made before was not using a walking foot. After many of you suggested it, I finally invested in one, and we will see if it makes such a difference. If you're enjoying the video so far, leaving a like or a small comment really helps the channel, especially now after skipping a couple of weeks for the holidays. YouTube tends to slow things down when I take a break, so your support truly makes a difference. Thank you so much for your support. I can already tell the walking foot makes all the difference. I'm not getting any pinch fabric, so I 100% recommend it. I can't believe I'm done with this. It felt like forever to quilt this. Now all that's left to do is the binding. I want this quilt to feel a bit different from my previous ones, so instead of adding regular binding, I'm adding ruffles around the edge. My first idea was to use the same fabric as the back, but it is so elastic and difficult to manage, I don't think I have the energy to handle this. Another option would be to use this leftover fabric. It's much prettier, but I have less fabric. I asked on Instagram what fabric I should use, and this one won by a lot. I wish I used a floral fabric to make this quilt more cottagecore looking, but since I didn't have any, this will add such a soft, cozy look to the quilt. Ideally, the gather strip should be twice the length of the quilt, but I don't have quite enough fabric. I can only make small gathers this time. It won't be as charming, but that's the trade-off of always trying to work with what I already have instead of buying more. And I'm okay with that. First, I made a single long strip, and here I'm sewing the endings. Then I will turn it inside out, and it will be ready to gather. To make the gathering easier, especially with such long strips, I'm using my favorite little shortcut. As I saw, I gently pinch the top thread to help the fabric gather automatically. It saves so much time and it works perfectly for long lengths. Setting the gathers in place took so long, and I'm afraid I'm feeling a little bit sick with a throat infection, so I'm going to rest now and continue tomorrow. Okay, I'm still feeling a little bit restless, but I'm ready for the final steps of the quilt. Before sewing the ruffle to the quilt, I need to prepare a binding with the back fabric. I thought this would be a difficult task considering the type of fabric I'm working with, but lucky me, I could rip it instead of cutting it, and the fabric is more than 9 meters, which is just the measure I needed. Now that the binding is ready, I have to make a sandwich with the binding, the ruffles and the quilt, and I will make a seam along the edge. It took a while to pin everything on its place, but it was also very calming. Here is how it looks. Now I only have to finish the back binding. I don't want this to show on the quilt top, so I will sew this by hand, and I will be done! And here it is, my winter quilt. I'm really happy with how it turned out. The soft greens, the tiny touches of red, and the cozy feeling it brings to my home. It feels wintry and magical without being overwhelmingly Christmassy, which is nice because I actually finished this after the New Year. Taking the time to look closely at my mistakes instead of rushing past them was honestly so grounding. But I also realized something else. The moment I told myself this one has to be perfect, I got a bit stuck. I second-guessed myself and I kept changing things. You can even see it in the final quilt. It's beautiful, but the pressure I put on myself shows in the process. And funny enough, my older quilts with all their imperfections suddenly felt equally precious. Their wonky seams, mismatched corners, and little quirks give them so much character and charm. This quilt isn't better, it's just different, and both versions have their own kind of magic. Also, confession time, I miscalculated when cutting the triangles, so now I have a whole little pile of leftovers waiting to become something else. Maybe a pillow, a mini wall quilt, maybe another small patchwork project. So if you want to see what they turn into, make sure you're subscribed and stay around for the next videos. There's always another cozy project waiting. Thank you so much for watching, for being patient with my slower pace this time, and for letting me learn and quilt alongside you. Adeu!